guys, it's Ann. Welcome to my home worm farming channel. Today we're going to take care of Blue, my 55-gallon worm bin made from a 55-gallon food grade barrel. Now I run this system in what is called the Wedge style. It's a continuous system where the bedding and food is added at one end and then you harvest from the other. Every time I feed the bin, I push all of the stuff towards the finished end and then add new components. As they're broken down, things do tend to shrink, leaving room to add more later. Eventually, the far side becomes stable, drier, and the worms leave. As the usable food is gone, the worms mostly stay in the 50% of the bin that has the harvestable food. And it takes about 5 or 6 months to get castings if you start with brand new, and about 5 pounds of worms. All right, well, as you can tell by the sifter right here, we have a little harvesting to do. I've got a new pecan tree I'm installing, and it's going to need some castings. If you have any questions at all while I'm doing the bins, whether you're in this video or some other, please feel free to always ask your questions below. This is a kind, welcoming community of vermiculturists, and quite honestly, we don't make fun of anybody. If they're new and they have newbie questions, that is totally fine. Even if you think somebody will make fun of you, if they are going to make fun of you, we will delete them. None of that is allowed. All right, so let's have a look-see. So this is a 1/4-inch screen of what is meant to be like a gold pan screen. And this is honestly, if you're the kind of person that wants to, screen things, as I am, then this is an essential. Now, one of the reasons I do this is so that I don't end up with a bunch of random things growing in the garden. Now, anything that comes over the top of that screen is going to go right back to the beginning. Do not pass go. And they will finish their dinner of whatever it was that I fed them a second time. So as you can tell, this has got some noticeable things in it. You've got some fibers in here that you can tell used to be maybe coconut coir. And then you can see the eggshell and other items that are in here. And this is what I mean by random things growing. I actually did have pumpkins growing this year that I didn't plant because of when I first moved here, I had a bunch of castings that I hadn't sifted, and I honestly just went around and put them in the plants. So I did get some free pumpkins, and I'm not against free pumpkins for sure. So if you want free pumpkins, then don't sift, because they will just grow everywhere. I mean, and not to mention free tomatoes, free peppers, free melon, free whatever it is. If you're not upset about being surprised later, then yeah, go ahead. Don't sift. In fact, quite honestly, me sifting this right here is not going to get the tomato and peppers. And I'm just gonna have to be okay with that. Alrighty, so that blanket from Mimi's that I put on there did work. As you can tell, the top of here is not completely dry as it would have been if I would not have had something on there. So believe it or not, I think this is enough for the purposes that I need right now. This is probably 2 liters of castings. And it's not 100% worm poo. When people talk about castings or you buy them in the store, they're probably almost 100% worm castings. What you're looking at here is maybe 50-50. So it's composted items that the worms and their friends have broken down into what looks to be soil, and then the rest of it could possibly be worm poop. So that's why you can still see that there's compost-like material there, because it is not 100% worm poop. In fact, if you let it go too far, worm poop is a very sticky substance. It's not friable like this. It tends to clump together and be very, very hard and stick. Well, if it's wet, it's sticky. If it's 100% castings and it's dry, it's probably gonna be like little clay balls. I digress. Let's get to the point at hand and start moving this down, and let's see some worms. All right, we've got that out of the way, and I generally will grab any kind of large item that I see on top and throw that down. But then the next point at hand is going to be to kind of fluff this up. It's been not, you know, a pile that's compacting for a long time, but what I am gonna do is, if you look at my older videos, you will see that I go in here and fluff it, where I go in and kind of go in deep here and make sure that the moisture is the same all the way through. One of the reasons I do that is you don't want things to become anaerobic. And in this case, because everything is rather new over here, there's really not a big chance of that. It hasn't been settling here for, you know, 6 or 8 months like it would have been at the other house. Right now, what we're seeing here is pretty much the same throughout. So I'm lucky that I'm not going to have to worry about things becoming anaerobic here. All right, so I've made my pile here. We've got a hole, which means I can move the stuff back here forward. All right. And because of the nice warm basement, basically what I've decided, you know, what you always get is you get a lot of germination. In the event that it was spring here, I could probably take these seeds or these sprouts and plant them in the garden if I had any idea what they were. Now, my worm bins have actually grown me avocado trees, mango trees. I kind of turn them into bonsais. But I imagine that, you know, if I wanted to, I could rescue some of these and plant them in the garden. But here in Illinois, it is fall, so there's not enough time to grow a melon or a pumpkin or whatever that is. So when I was talking in the beginning about worms will be in the last 50%, we're getting to that 50% mark right now. So if you've been wondering, Anne, where's the worms? The worms are going to be closer to the food. In fact, here's a holdout. This guy has been down here without the food, so we're going to help him out and get him moved over. And even though this looks like it's 100% done, this still has time to kind of mature and compact. So even though that's humped up very tall, when we come back next time, it will have reduced again. Air spaces and, you know, all the worm bin critters will have eaten more and it will reduce. All right, let me flip you around and we can look at the business end of the bin. All right, here we are. We're gonna continue on here, moving things over. And you can tell this part of the bin has been kept at a much higher moisture, and there's worms. And that is really what you want. You want the portion of the bin that has the worms to be a little bit wetter, or quite a bit wetter, so that not only will they be happy, but also you want the other end to be drier so that it can be sifted or harvested easily. You can't really easily sift a very high moisture like this. This wouldn't go through the sifter very well. So I'm just going to keep edging away here. And if you're new here, there used to be in this system, probably about a year ago, there was probably 10 pounds of worms in here. And unfortunately, I had a mouse, or several, that came through and actually took out many of my worms. So I have purchased more, and Blue will be getting some new roommates here. All right, on to the next part. All right, this is the part where we might start seeing quite a few worms. This is the area that has been fed recently. And I don't know if you can see, but there's quite a bit of potworms. I'm suspecting that whatever there is about the electric compost, it almost smells a little mushroomy in here, for lack of a better word. But we're starting to see some worms. I try to keep the stuff that is finished over here, but as you're telling, it's not always that easy. But I'm seeing some worms. Let me move you over, and then we will peek at the part where we fed last time. All right, here's a chicken bone from an experiment a long time ago. Still in rough and tough shape. It's not gonna break down anytime soon. I'm seeing a lot of wiggling here. That makes me happy. So I have been feeding in between worm channel episodes in order to try and foster breeding. Normally, when everything's populated, I feed much heavier all at once and then let them go through it over a month's time. But lately I've been coming down here about every week because I honestly could use some more worms. There's probably not even 2 pounds of worms in here. The mice managed to eat most of those. But there is a combination of red wigglers and blue worms, of which this is a blue worm. And I can tell that this is a blue worm more by its speed than I can by its overall look. It looks a lot like a juvenile red wiggler, but much faster. So if it looks like a red wiggler and it's slow, like this guy, probably a red wiggler. If it looks like a red wiggler and it's very zippy, probably a blue worm. All right, so I'm making a spot here, and I am gonna put in 1 bin of the red wigglers that I got from Mimi. All right, now let's go get that bin, get Blue some new roommates. Okay, this is 1 mortar tray that I had filled full of new bedding and placed a third of the red wigglers that I got. I split them between 3 different bins, and there you go. That is a good look at a red wiggler. Okay, dude, there, come on. All right, if I can hold still, you can see the band, the clitellum near his nose end, which is over here, is nice and chubby, which is what you would expect from a red wiggler. Now this is a mature adult, although it is small. All right, so now that we've got these guys in here, let's get them some food. All right, let's get them their base. So believe it or not, I'm gonna feed them some weeds today. This is some Joe Pye weed and some comfrey and some burdock. Maybe not that much. I'll save the rest for next week. All right, so I've been growing comfrey. That was one of the first things I brought with me so that it could mine nutrients. The burdock, of course, grew up on its own, and then so did the Joe Pye weed. We're gonna give them that. Then they're also going to get 1 little squash and some electric compost. All right. And this is, something that you can do. These species, pioneer species like burdock and comfrey, are very good at mining minerals out of the soil. And so when you feed them to your worms, then those nutrients are passed on to the critters in your worm bin. So especially when you have the availability during the summer, it's a good food source to think about, even if you don't have, you know, a bunch of people food, or you don't want to make worm chow, this is a free resource that you can use to feed your worms to turn into compost for your family. And then you can feed them the script that you wrote with all good intentions to speak to and then promptly forgot it. I think I got most of everything I wanted to say. Now I'm going to take the rest of the red wiggler bedding that they came in, and I'm going to cover that up now. Normally when you get worms, you see like a big release. But because these were in breeder trays for about a month, unfortunately, we're not going to get that, you know, super cool, I'm going to look at 2 pounds of worms all at once picture. But if you do want to see that picture, I do have a little video that I'll link right over there. And if you want to see more about blue, I have an entire playlist that I will link right over here. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me and my worms, and everybody, have a good day.